Well, good morning, Grace Church. It's great to see all of you here. We're starting a new series in the Gospel according to John. I've enjoyed learning from this book over the summer, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with all of you. But let me lead us in prayer as we begin. Father, every time we open this book, we get to hear you speak. And you tell us who you are. You tell us what you're doing. And you show us the way back to you. And so please help us to hear your voice and believe what you're saying to us today. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, let me start today with a question. What is the best invitation you have ever received? Some of our young people are in the process of applying for college. So if you can imagine receiving that letter in the mail, dear so-and-so, I am delighted to inform you that the Committee on Admission has admitted you to the class of 2030. And just saying that made me feel very old, but it could be any number of things, a wedding invitation, an offer of employment. And these invitations give you a sense of belonging. Okay, there's a place where you belong, where someone wants you to be there. And that's what John chapter 1 is. This text is the most gracious invitation of them all. And the God who made us is inviting us into his family. Now, this is a famously rich text. You might even say dense. And the last time I tried to preach this, I tried to preach everything in it, and that was hard work for everyone, so we're not going to do that again. So let me start by giving you the main points. And the main point is this: God came down to us to bring us up to him. There are two movements in this text, two becomings, you might say. And the Word became flesh. That's God coming down to us, so that we who are flesh might become the children of God. And so if we get a little lost along the way, just come back to that main point. God came down to us to bring us up to him. Now, there are three things I want to say around that, because there are three parts to the invitation. And first, God is inviting us to have life. And we're looking at verses 1 to 5. Now, John the writer doesn't begin with the invitation. He begins with the person making the invitation. And he wants us to know that whatever he's offering you, he's able to do it. He can do what he says. He can give you the life he is offering. And we know that because he is the maker of all things. Let me read from verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Over the summer, I tried to get my family to watch one of my all-time favorites, Back to the Future. Some of you may remember that movie. They didn't want to see it, so instead we ended up watching K-pop Demon Hunters, which was a very different kind of movie. Anyway, imagine that you got into Doc's time machine and you set the date to the very beginning, before the Big Bang, before the birth of the universe. What would you find in the beginning? Well, the atheist will tell you that in the beginning was nothing. The Greeks will tell you that in the beginning was something. But John says that in the beginning was someone, a person called the Word. And when he speaks, things happen. And he said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And he said, "Let there be life." And there was life. Whatever he wants, that's what he gets. Whatever he commands, that is what happens. And everything happens by the power of his voice. Everything is spoken into existence. And we see it happen again later in this book. This Word that made all things, he becomes a man named Jesus Christ. And as he walks around first century Judea, He commands the lame to walk. He commands the blind to see. He even commands the corpses to live, and they listen to his voice. Just yesterday, I was at a funeral for a pastor in Long Island, and in fact, I was at his wife's funeral the year before, and they left behind 3 young daughters. Now, when you're standing in front of the casket and looking at the body and seeing what's left for the person you knew, it's a chance to ask a very important question. What is my hope in life and death? Is there anyone who can fix this? Is there anyone who can do something about this? Well, John says there is, and here he is called the Word. And if this Word is the one who made all things, then this is a word we can count on. This is a word that cannot fail. And if he's the one who gave us life in the first place, then he can give it back to us when we lose it. And he's not just offering hope in the face of death. As wonderful as that is, this is more than that. You see, people think Christianity is like insurance, so you buy it for the worst case scenario, but it is so much more than that. Have a look at verse 4 and listen to the invitation of the God who made all of us. And verse 4 says, "In him was life, and that life was the light of men." Now, let me ask a few questions to help you understand this. Do you want to have light in your life? Do you want to have life to the full? Do you want to do more than just breathe or survive or get by? Well, God is inviting us to enjoy life, to do more than just survive. But did you notice verse 4? It has to be with him. Verse 4 says, "In him was life." You know what that means? It means our life is found in him. And it continues, "His life is the light of men." And that means there is no light anywhere else. C.S. Lewis writes in Mere Christianity that Satan sold us a lie. And the lie was that we could be happy without God. And then Lewis writes, out of that hopeless attempt has come nearly all that we call human history: money, poverty, ambition, war, prostitution, classes, empires, slavery, the long, terrible story of man trying to find something other than God which will make him happy. But there is no such thing. We were made to enjoy God. He himself is the fuel we were made to burn, the food we were made to feed on. There is no other. God cannot give us happiness and peace apart from himself because it is not there. There is no such thing. And that's the darkness we read about in verse 5. Okay, the darkness is the lie that we have all endorsed, that we can be happy without God. And that lie has given birth to all the terrible things in this world. But listen to what John says in verse 5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. We've all tried to be happy without God, and as a result, we have made a mess of our lives and a wreck of this world. And that darkness in verse 5, it's the emptiness we cannot explain or fail. It's this feeling that we're losing a battle we cannot win. You know, I love that first hymn that we sang today. I know it's not easy to sing, so thank you for humoring me and singing it with me. But listen to the opening lines again. Do you feel the world is broken? Do you feel the shadows deepen? That's the darkness of verse 5. It's the sting of shame and guilt. It's the grief of broken hearts. But the next line goes like this. But do you know that all the dark won't stop the light from getting through? That's verse 5, isn't it? The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Friends, let me tell you what this means. He can fix what we broke. He can mend what we shattered. He can raise what we killed. We are lost in a lie that we have all endorsed, and we have made a mess of our lives and a wreck of this world, but into that mess, Jesus Christ brings light. As we pull this first point together, just imagine putting together a resume for this person called the Word. You know, the last time I wrote a resume was when I applied for this job, and I hope that's the last one I ever write. But Lord willing, I would love to finish my race here. Okay, but imagine putting together a resume for the Word. Date of birth, not applicable. Previous work experience, all things were made through him. Qualifications, in him was life. Personal goals, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. This is the one inviting us to have life. Okay, this is the one who made all things, and if you are with him, the darkness does not win. Here's part 2 of the invitation, and it's an invitation to be family. Let me read verse 12. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. This means, by the way, that we are not children by nature. No one is born a child of God. It's a right that must be granted, and it's given to those who receive him, who believe in his name. Now, this text clarifies what it means to believe, and Christian faith is not believing in spite of the evidence. It's not a leap in the dark, okay? Nor is it a mystical feeling that comes and goes, kind of like my cell phone signal at home. Sometimes it's there, most of the time it's not. Christian faith is none of those things. Christian faith is believing the facts of history. It's believing eyewitness testimony. It's believing that something big went down in first century Judea. Have a look at verses 7 and 8. And notice the word witness. It shows up 3 times in those verses. So verse 7, John came as a witness to bear witness about the light. Verse 8, he was not the light, but came to bear witness about the light. So 3 times we see the word witness. And that word tells you that we're dealing with momentous events. Let me give you an example of what I mean. I had a coffee and cereal for breakfast this morning, not in the same bowl, but separately like a normal person. But as far as the world is concerned, that was a non-event. Okay, no one's going to write a book about what I had for breakfast. No one's going to testify in court about the contents of my bowl. That was a non-event. But the events that you read about in John's gospel, they mattered enough to warrant testimony. They left a mark on history. They were momentous events. In fact, they were so noteworthy that even Roman and Jewish historians had to admit that something remarkable happened in first century Judea. Now, normally the Romans had very little interest in this backwater Jewish province at the very edge of their empire. And I tried to think of a modern example, but I'm bound to offend someone for insulting their hometown, so I'm going to let you fill in the blank. But Judea was the backwater province of the Roman Empire. It had one main street and no traffic lights. It was Nowheresville. But something put that province on the map. Someone made the front page of the Washington Post. And it made enough of a splash that it made it into not one, but 2 Roman histories, one by Suetonius and another by Tacitus. And the Jews would have preferred if Jesus had never existed. He entered their world and turned it upside down. He was not the Messiah they wanted. For them, he was a very inconvenient fact. But here's the thing about facts. It doesn't matter how you feel about them. If something happened, then it happened, whether you like it or not. And the events surrounding Jesus were so undeniably significant that a Jewish historian named Josephus had to acknowledge what had happened. You see, these events warranted testimony. They left a mark on history. They were momentous events. And the testimony of those who were there is that Jesus was either a ray of sunshine or a scorching sunburn. And you either loved him or you hated him. But the one thing you could not do was ignore him. Friends, the writer of this gospel is inviting us to consider the facts, to examine the evidence. John is not the only witness he mentions. There are many others you'll meet in this book. God became part of our history. And by entering history, he made himself accessible. He made himself knowable. And this is not the kind of knowledge you get by personal intuition or philosophical speculation or spiritual meditation. No, we come to know him through historical investigation. So to receive the light of the world, to believe in his name, what you have to do is read this book like you would read any historical account. Something big went down in first century Judea. And the writer invites us to examine the evidence and come to our own conclusion. That's what Christian faith is. Now, the writer also tells us that not everyone believed him or received him. If you look at verse 10, the world he made did not know him. Or verse 11, his own people, the Jewish people, the ones who were told in advance that he was coming, his own people did not receive him. And the simple reason is this: the light exposes the darkness. It's like turning on the lights in the basement, which always makes me a little nervous because every little secret, every dark corner, all the things you buried down there, it's all going to be exposed. You see, there are some things we prefer not to know. And we'd rather not know the truth about ourselves. I'm sure you all have something like a performance appraisal or an annual review, and if someone is just making up stuff about you, well, whatever, right? It's not true. It's water off your back. Or if someone is flattering you, most of us can see right through that. But if the feedback is honest and fair, well, that hurts, doesn't it? When someone says something about you that is true and critical, both at the same time, those words land the hardest. Honest feedback hurts. It wounds our pride. It exposes our flaws. It deflates our egos. And if Jesus is the light of the world, the true light which enlightens everyone, then his feedback will be very honest and very fair. And I'll tell you right now, you're not going to like what he says about you. But here's the best part about this. The one who knows everything about you is also willing to have you. You can be known as you are and loved as you are. He's seen all of you and he still wants you. He's seen the worst of you and he still loves you. And if we accept what he says about us, or in the words of verse 12, if we receive him and believe in his name, then he gives us the right to become children of God. I've shared this story before, so forgive me if you've heard it already, but as some of you know, I used to work for a hedge fund on Greenwich Avenue, and my boss had 2 assistants who sat outside his office, and they were only ever warm and friendly and kind, but they were bouncers, right? They were gatekeepers. Their very presence said, "You are not welcome here." I worked less than 100 feet from his office, but it might as well have been Fort Knox if I wasn't someone that wasn't allowed in. But this was not true for his children. So every now and then, my boss brought his kids to work, and they could do whatever they wanted in the office. They could rearrange the furniture, turn it into a fort, run around screaming like savages, and all they got was a smile from their father. Friends, you can have the same relationship with God. You can barge into his office and tell him about your day and ask for silly things, and he will listen. He'll listen to all of it. When my son tries to tell me a story, I start to lose patience about 5 minutes in. It takes him a while to get to the point. But God isn't like that. He loves to hear from his children. And to those who receive Jesus, who believe in his name, he gives them the right to become children of God. There's someone out there who knows everything about you and is ready to have you. He's seen all of you and still wants you. He's seen the worst of you and still loves you. So come into the light and be willing to face the truth. You'll be humbled, but not humiliated. You'll be exposed, but not rejected, because those who receive Jesus become the children of God. So we have an invitation to have life, an invitation to be family, and lastly, an invitation to know God. And this is more than just knowing things about God. This is knowing God and enjoying him. It's delighting in his presence. It's basking in his glory. Have a look at verse 14. And John writes, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth." And just reading those words, you get the sense that John is doing more than just conveying information. He's not just saying things about the Word. He's worshiping him. He's enjoying him. He's basking in the sunshine of his glory. I spent some time this week learning about the sun, that is S-U-N, sun, the star in the middle of our solar system. And 99.86% of the mass of the solar system is contained in the sun. It's 75% hydrogen and 25% helium. It's 330,000 times the size of Earth. It's 15 million degrees at the core of the sun. I think that's 15 million Celsius, but when you're that high, what does it matter? It's 15 million of something. It's very hot. And the Earth receives so much energy from the sun that the total amount of energy received in 1 hour exceeds total human consumption in an entire year. Now, you can learn a lot of facts about the sun. I'm Gen X, so I used Wikipedia. If you're Gen Z, you're using ChatGPT. But you can learn a lot of facts about the sun. You can look it up on Wikipedia. You can read about it on ChatGPT. Or you can stand outside and enjoy the sunshine. Now, today's not a great day for that illustration, but you know what it's like to stand in the sunshine. Okay, it's the same with God. You can learn a lot of facts about God, or you can learn to enjoy him. John is telling us that he met a man who was God. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen him, he says. We basked in the sunshine of his glory. If you can imagine all of God's radiance and goodness squeezed into a human body, that's Jesus. And John says we saw him. Imagine all the power of a nuclear explosion pressed into a rubber band, or all the power of a raging ocean poured into a glass of water. That's Jesus. And John says we saw him. We basked in his glory. We felt the warmth of his kindness. We heard the clarity of his wisdom. We saw the might of his power. And when he walked into the room, it was like standing in the sunshine. You know, Moses did a pretty good job giving us a sense of that glory, but now we have seen the fullness of that glory, full of grace and truth. And we saw it in Jesus. That's what John is saying. God spoke many words in the past, but this is his final word. his last word. It's the word. And in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son. There's nothing more for God to say. There's nothing more he can show us than Jesus. And let me close with this. Did you notice that word flesh? Okay, verse 14 says the word became flesh. Now, there are other words John could have used. There's a word for man. There's a word for body. So he could have said the word became a man or the word became a body. Those words are cleaner, healthier, more sanitized, more abstract. But the word he chooses is flesh. I mean, it makes you think of the meat counter at Costco. It makes you think of flesh and blood. And that's precisely the reason he chose that word. When God became a man, he took on flesh that could be torn and blood that could be spilled. He took on all the biological messiness of being a human being, and I do mean all of it. Just think about the fact that God chose to be born. He could have entered this world as a fully formed man, but he didn't. He chose to be born. He entered the world through a birth canal with all the biological messiness that entails. Don't worry, I'm not going to go any further with that. I don't want to spoil the surprise for our young people, but God chose to be born. The God who made this world chose to enter his world through a birth canal. It's a stunning display of condescension and humility, but he insisted on becoming like us in every possible way. And he didn't even live a happy life. The one we should have feared was hated. The one we should have worshipped was despised. And the one who had life in himself ended up dying on a cross for the ones who rejected him. Friends, this is John's story. It's a true story grounded in history. And the Word became flesh so that we who are flesh might become the children of God. Or more simply, God came down to us to bring us up to him. John basked in his glory. And he's saying, come and see for yourself. Come and join his family. Come and stand in the sunshine. Come and see what happens when the light shines in the darkness. He can fix what we broke. He can mend what we shattered. He can raise what we killed. Let me close in prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you and praise you for this gracious invitation. True life, everlasting life, is knowing you and enjoying you. We were made for that. You are the fuel we were meant to burn. You are the food we were meant to eat. And we cannot be happy without you, for there is no such thing. So we thank you that you came all the way down to us to bring us up to you. Thank you for coming to give us life and to make us family and to show us who you are. And so please help us to receive Jesus. And we ask this in his name. Amen.